All right, welcome to Wealth Cartel, where hindsight's a motherfucker.
Our mission is to stop people saying, I wish I had a listen, and to help people capitalise on everyone else's mistakes before making them themselves.
In summary, our tagline says it all: turn our hindsight into your foresight.
So we're just a couple of lads from the west and the central coast who grew up without really any wealth around us and used it to motivate us to make something of ourselves.
Along the way, mainly as we matured, we did a lot of things right, but more importantly, we made a lot of mistakes.
A lot of mistakes that could have been avoided by not being know-it-alls and actually listening to what others had told us instead of thinking, no, not me. So my name's Akko. I'm a small business owner with a bunch of franchises called Pen on Picasso at the moment, with large plans of building a large business portfolio.
I'm Kingy. I'm a financial advisor looking to break the mold on what good advice should look like and start teaching people how to enjoy life to the fullest while also planning for tomorrow out of my business, 3 Kings Wealth Management.
But yeah, all respect to religious people. I mean, I still, they're all good people, but just it's not for some people. It wasn't for me. So yeah, moving out at such a young age, and I wouldn't even advise anyone who's 16 to move out of home and try and live your own life, because you're gonna fall into trouble.
Not now, shit's expensive.
No. And if I had kids, I'd probably lose my shit if they moved out at 16. But yeah, like you said, you have one life and you got to do what you want with it. So I wouldn't advise people to do it. I wouldn't advise people to pick their own selfish agenda over staying in the family. But because you'll probably fall into trouble. I fell into trouble after that. But yeah, you've got to make your own decisions. And for me, I was very mature at a young age, so I was ready to make my own decisions.
Yeah. And what was the second thing?
The second thing was the trouble that I fell into after I made that decision. So you think about why, when I moved out, I thought, why are my parents freaking out? Fine, I'm an adult, this will be fine. This will be fun. But then, yeah, I did fall into some trouble, and I fell into a really unhealthy relationship for a long time. Probably about, the relationship went for 6 years. So it was a long time. And it was really unhealthy lifestyle, unhealthy situation. And just the kind of person I was at the time, which was a young 16-year-old looking for this life, kept me stuck in a situation whereas now, if someone did the things to me that the person was doing then, I'd go, fuck you, and I'd hit him in the face and I'd leave. But when you're a young girl, you don't stand up for yourself and you don't think about it.
And that's another part of the female martial arts that, we talked to Arlene on a very similar topic, and that's part, people say this is brute, but half the reason that you said what you just said, if that happened now, is because you've got that, you've got that inner peace with martial arts, and you've got that confidence and that skill set. It's a real, I'm about to have a son, and we're hoping to have a daughter after. And if I have a daughter, I'm throwing her straight into the get in there. Anyone touches you anywhere, you kill them. You jump, use their head as a fucking trampoline. I don't care.
Yeah,
but
it's not just about your physical ability that you get from it. It's about the
100% standing up for yourself, and 100%. And I think this is a perfect topic we're talking about, in the fact that I think you'd agree, Jacinta, that what you went through made you who you are today. Yeah. But in the same token, if we have kids, we wouldn't want our kids going through the same things we went through. And that's kind of what we're trying to say, right? The things I went through growing up, I had a great family, but I fell into trouble as well. And I wouldn't change what I did. No way. But I would and this is what the podcast is about, is I want to use those lessons because I wouldn't want my kids doing what I did.
No, neither would I. But I would want them being in a position where I am now. So
100%. So we're trying to give, and this is the whole idea of the podcast, is people always get on and we always say we wouldn't change, we don't regret anything, but I've never thought this takes us 20 episodes to get here, but here we go. So I always think, if you think about the things that you did that got you to where you are, but you wouldn't, how can we pass that experience or that lesson on to our kids without them having to go through it? Right. And that's sort of what we're trying to do here. And I think thank you. Look at that. We're 20 episodes and we got there.
Well, you don't listen or if you're like me, you don't listen. If someone tells you something's going to work out not well for you, I don't listen. I go, how about I try for myself and I'll find out for myself. Unless it's I was thinking about this before the podcast today, and I was thinking the only person I listen to probably is my coach. I have 2 coaches.
Yeah.
And they're the only two people I can think of in the world who, if they told me to go jump off a bridge, I'd probably consider it. Like, other than that, parents.
I don't condone that at all. I don't
Parents,
condone that.
relationships, bosses, if they tell me what to do, I sort of just go, how about I do what I want to do and I'll find out for myself.
Yeah, tell you how it goes.
Yeah.
And that, to be honest, it's,
too.
yeah, and that's a like I challenge everyone to be independent, and being independent in that right is a flaw, a massive flaw. Also a massive pro as well, you know, like it.
Yeah.
You've just got to try and balance it, you know, like you learn things, you learn the hard way. But yeah, I think and we all have that little rebellious streak in us too. And then I think that's probably, if I was to put a con, like if I was to put a flaw or a downside onto when you learn how to fight and when you start training, you get that confidence. It can go that way because you're like, nah, I can do that. Like I could.
Yeah, and you get stubbornness. I'm very stubborn. So
yeah.
My stubbornness is excellent in a fight because I will fight till the death till I'm better than you. But stubbornness outside of the fight, it can cause a lot of issues. You know, with
that's right.
Friendships, everything.
So we'll go into the triangle to happiness now, right? So the wealth triangle which we created. So the idea of balancing the right amount of balance on money, the right amount of balance on health, and the right amount of lifestyle. Now, obviously at 26, you're nowhere near where you want to be, right? Like that's we got a long journey to go. So we want to reiterate, like we do every podcast, that this isn't financial advice or health advice. This is just Jacinta talking about her journey so far and some of the things that she would change or do the same going forward. So let's start with money. You know, you're still working a full-time job, you're balancing out between that. What have you done really well or you did poorly that you would go back and change to, you know, let's think about if you had kids, what are the things that you did or didn't do that you would pass on to them to make sure that they could get through a bit better?
So I'm a big believer, like everybody loves to have money, right? Everyone wants more money, wants a nicer house, a nicer neighborhood, everything. But I'm a big believer, and I try and encourage this in everyone around me that's close to me, is even though I haven't had ever lots of money in my life, I know that money isn't going to make me happy. So a lot of people go out there and pursue really, you know, financially rewarding careers. But if you look at them Monday to Saturday for 70 hours of the week, they're miserable. Like, how many hours do you have in the week? I don't know the math. But if you're miserable for 70 of them, that's a significant portion. So yeah. I've worked a lot of different jobs. I've worked jobs where I was working 13 hours a day in an office and getting pretty good money, but I was just so miserable for those 13 hours. And I thought, no house on any beach in any part of the world can make this 13-hour day.
What's the point? You get these. I have clients exactly like this. You get, like, we used to have clients like this. They have all the money in the world and they have these beautiful homes, but then you just work longer trying to pay the thing off.
And you're probably fighting with your husband or wife because you're never there, and you probably have no idea what's going on in your kids' life because you're never there, and kids don't talk to you anyway. So if you're never there, they're not going to talk to you. And
the other thing is, what you said is perfectly right. I say this all the time. If you're on 500 grand a year, right? Say you're on big money, you're on 250, 500 grand a year, but you have this cycle from Monday to Friday where you hate your life, and then on the weekend you end up just on a bender, or you're spending that money. So let's say you weren't
thinking about the next week starting and dreading it.
Well, let's say living your dream life, you're earning 60K a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're enjoying every single day. So when it comes to the weekend, you don't end up on this ridiculous cycle of trying to buy your happiness.
Mm.
So if you have someone on 250K that is in this crazy cycle that every year they're spending 250K to try and find happiness, what's the difference between that, unhappy and having no money left? You're earning a lot, but you've got none left because you're bendering, or you're on the piss, or you're buying stuff to trying to pick that back up just to do it all over again, versus someone who's on 60K who also has no money left in the week, but they had a great week. They enjoyed every single moment of it. What is the difference? There is none. Except this person is heaps happier. In my eyes, that person is wealthier.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
a good way to put it. Yeah.
Massive thing people need to figure out, because they just think money. Overvalued. It's overvalued. It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper. That's all it is.
I don't think you can put a price on the way something makes you feel either. So, like with
So
fighting,
you're saying
everyone says, well, how much do you make off it? And I'm gonna be perfectly honest, like shit all. Like I haven't, if I think about everything I've invested into it versus everything I've made, I'm well and truly down.
how happy are you?
I'm very happy. Like I'm
Exactly.
extremely happy. And I don't get to the weekend and try and spam all the fun in and go, oh my God, tomorrow's Monday. Like it was always my goal that it was always my goal to not dread Monday. So when I was working my old jobs, city jobs, I would dread Monday because that whole week starts again. So I made it a goal for Mondays not to be such a horrible thing.
That's a great goal. I love that.
Not horrible anymore. I get to train.
You look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm like, new week.
More punches in the head.
Yeah.
And that, mate, that's a really, like, I love that. That's a great segment because at the end of the day, money is a vehicle. It's not a goal, right? And everyone thinks money's the goal. But then you dive into it and it's always to buy extra shit. The whole idea of money is to buy happiness. That's what we get money for. We make money to buy happiness. So if you're making heaps of money and you're not happy, how good's your investment? Well, what you just said was a great point. If you make shit all and you've invested all this money into fighting, now I'll challenge you, and you said you've made heaps less, but have you? If money's purpose is to buy happiness and you're super happy, that's a great investment.
Yeah.
You know, like if we all died tomorrow and someone had $10 million in the bank and was miserable, and you died tomorrow and you had no money in the bank, but you were happy as fuck, who wins? Not them.
Yeah. I win.
It's crazy, right? It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's really good. I really like that segment. Well done. All right, next one, health. So obviously being a fighter, you got to be healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, I know, like I'm 30 this year. Jesus, it's getting old. And I've been training since I was 15. And
I used to look at 26-year-old fighters and go, geez, they're old.
No way, you
I am 26-year-old fighter.
But you look at, like, I look back at, I've been training since I was 15 and like actually training, like I was a swimmer since I was about 7. And then I got into gym and fighting from about 14, 15. And when you're younger, you can do whatever. Like I could hit my 1RM fresh, right? Like it was easy. Now I got to warm up for my warm up. You know what I mean? And so what we're looking at here is what are some health wise, from physical to mental, what you put in your body, how you train. What are some things you can look back on and go, I did that really well. That's helped me today. Or now looking back, I probably should have switched that up. I'd recommend people do that a bit different. Is there anything on the health front that you'd pass on?
Yeah, lots. So we'll start with the earlier stage of the career. So I used to, probably for my first 15 fights, quite a long time, I had a back issue. I mean, everyone seems to have a back issue, but I had a back issue in which I would try and kick and it would then shoot like a shooting pain up my spine. And I did that. I just, would shake it off and be like, okay, I don't want to kick too much tonight. I'll kick more tomorrow. And being a kickboxer, it's not a very smart way to go about it. So probably for like 4 years, I had this back issue that I would just ignore because the one time I did go to the doctor about it, this is your GP. I don't advise ever going to a GP for a sports injury. He would tell me, that's it. You need to retire. No more fighting.
Oh, how bad's that?
If you continue, you probably won't walk again. And then the flashbacks of my parents saying you'll be in a wheelchair would come.
Was he fat? Was he fat and unhealthy himself?
He was not in shape.
I hate that. I had a doctor the same, and I had physios, and I'd go there and I'd come in. I'd had like at the moment I got real bad tennis elbow from golfer's elbow from my powerlifting. And I go in and they'd be like, oh, you got to stop for 3 weeks. I'm like, fuck off. Like, have you ever trained in your life?
Yeah, no, it's either that, like they think I'm just going to sit on the couch and then develop obesity or something. That's so anyway, I would continue to ignore the issue until it got really bad where I couldn't walk. So you're forced to address the issue then. So I found a physio. Was
your treatment at the start just every time I hurt, just throw a teep kick instead of a roundhouse? Is that what it was? Like just
no, because the issue was, I don't know if you know much about it. The issue was with my discs. So my discs were herniated off the spine and fallen down. So it really restricts your flexibility. So I couldn't even really throw a front kick higher than stomach.
Yeah, really? Because I got my lower, I got a ruptured lower disc from the army. And it's happened if I deadlift and then I train, I can throw up to about the rib cage, and then especially when you get lazy and you don't turn your hips enough, and it just becomes all leg.
Yeah.
If I do that, and then I'll throw it out, so now I'll just throw deep kicks all day until it recovers.
Yeah. Ignore the issue and it goes away, right? Except mine didn't go away. So, and at the time I was working with a strength coach as well, who was not a fight-specific strength coach. He was just like a general CrossFit sort of coach. So every time I would complain that something hurt, something was uncomfortable, he would sort of just push me harder and like try and push toughness into me. Yeah, so we get a few years in and I can't walk. So I had to start going to physio and stuff. And I had to take about, I think it took about 9 months off fighting.
Wow.
Yeah. I took about 4 weeks off walking. And yeah, it took me about a solid 3 months to be able to develop the jog again. So one thing, if we're going on hindsight, is if you're going to be a fighter, work with people who know what you're going through. So
and listen to your body.
Yeah, don't just work with like general CrossFitters or power lifters, or like you need someone who's either done it or studied it. Yeah, you need coaches. And to just look after your body, like if you think about what your body goes through in a fight or a fight prep, it's not normal. Like it's
not good. It's not even good for you.
It's not normal for a human body to go through that much training.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do it, you need to address something, especially if you're feeling something in your spine or you're feeling nerve damage. Like there's one thing to just tough it out on a hard day, but there's another thing to permanently damage yourself. So. And
I think one of the things, like for me, injury wise, is when you're younger, especially, you think, 4 months, that's so long away. But then when you do it wrong, 9 months, 3 years, that's a lot longer. Like I look back at all my injuries that I've rehabbed averagely, and now I rehab religiously because I know that 3 months is a much shorter time. Like my shoulder, I had a shoulder recon, I rehabbed it in 3 months. It's supposed to be like 12 or something. I just rushed, it was back to 1RMs. And I spent 5 years. I spent 5 years at sub-average performance because every time I throw a jab, I'd be like, oh, fuck, I'm in trouble here.
The longer
and now I've rehabbed it.
The higher the injury goes. Think of
100%. And the longer it takes to recover from that one. And that's a good point. What about mental health?
Mental health? I'm a mental case in fight prep. It's very difficult for me. But you know what? I think a lot of fighters will tell you this is COVID has been not a blessing. I'm not going to say a blessing because it's torn the world apart and actually killed a lot of people. But it's been a blessing in disguise in like you get a chance to stop and evaluate. And I think fighting or not, everyone has evaluated what they want this year and they've evaluated what's important to them. So I've seen so many people come back and quit those jobs they hated or start exercising, or I've seen fighters change the way they live their normal lives because you're not doing 7 weeks of camp and 3 months off, 7 weeks of camp, 3 months off. When you only have that little bit of time left, like you said about the weekend, you spam all the fun in that you can get. Like you spam the partying, you spam the calories because you know that soon that food's going to be taken away from you. You spam the alcohol because you can't drink in prep. You spam everything. And then when those 7 weeks of camp come, you're rushing, trying to like get back into your healthy lifestyle. Some are worse than others. I'm not a big partier anyway, but I was really big on like eating and going out and stuff like that. So now that, I haven't felt like my time is going to be taken away from me and I've had 9 months off fighting, I've been able to balance everything. So I've been able to sort of find my peace a little bit more.
That's beautiful. That's mad.
Yeah. Because
you were saying before, you have to sort of stay ready as well. So you've had to find, but moving forward, you're going to be able to utilize that into your fight camps are probably going to be easier now moving forward,
Yeah. Well, and instead of like fighting, because I fight regularly at 54 kilos as well. So instead of fighting at 54 kilos and then blowing back up to 61, 62 kilos, I'm now able, like, because I have so much time to experiment, I've taught myself to sit in between that. So I'm sitting at like 58, but that's because I've taught myself that like not everything's going to be taken away.
You'll be a better 54 too. Like you'll be a a stronger, healthier 54 as well.
Yeah, and I've just you've had a lot of time to find your peace, I guess, because like there was one point last year where I had 3 professional fights booked in the space of 6 weeks. So sitting really low, but not really knowing how to manage that weight, and then the stress of all the fights. But having the break makes you really contemplate, okay, yes, that's what I want, but I don't want to feel stressed all the time. So how do I go about not feeling stressed all the time and achieving that?
Yeah, that's brilliant. We've seen a lot of people, like from business owners as well. Like the number one message that we sort of get is that we've been getting is those who really know what they want, or those who are succeeding. Obviously, COVID was shit for everyone, right? Shit for everyone. But they've gone, all right, here's what it is. How do I benefit from this? How do I make this work? How do I pivot to make this work for me? And it's brilliant. Like a lot of people, we all could have sat on our ass and when I give up, it's too hard. Like this is arguably, well, not even arguably, this is the hardest time for our generation that we've experienced. And some people did give up, and a lot of us could have. But the number one thing from fighters, from athletes, through to business people, whatever, they've just gone, all right, this is shit. How can I use it? How can I use it to pivot and get better? And it's almost like, I think, especially fighting, it comes, it was a challenge. At the start, you felt like you've been knocked on your ass, but then you go, no, hang on, this is just another fight. How do I get up? And how do I beat this? COVID's probably got the best record of any fighter ever right now. So how do we get one back on it? And that's and that's really good. That's sort of what we've noticed across the board with everyone.
Yeah. I think it's a good eye opener. So when I had all this extra time with COVID as well, to be honest, I wasn't getting what I wanted out of fighting at the time. I wasn't getting the opportunities that I wanted, the shows that I wanted, the opponents I wanted. And I felt that I had done everything to deserve those opportunities. But kickboxing and Muay Thai wasn't giving me what I needed, or it wasn't giving me enough anymore. So having the break in the fight, I finally got to do what I was thinking about for so long, which was making the transition. I just never had time. So COVID gave me time to learn an entire new sport and to do what genuinely I really wanted to do, which was transition.
And that's the pivot, I think that's the key word in this whole COVID thing of people who are going to make it and people who aren't, is they learn to pivot. You out of everything that COVID brought us, all the negatives, the one positive everyone had was time. And realistically, that's what we all work for. And a lot of people waste that time, but the good people used it. And you're a great example of that. So that's good. What about lifestyle? So lifestyle, the beautiful thing I love about fighters, like that love fighting, is, it is your lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like that's part. But looking back, you talked about partying a bit too much, eating too much, all that stuff. From a lifestyle perspective, what are some things that you did well, or that you would go back and change, that you sort of maybe could have got you to where you were faster?
I've always trained really hard. So I don't think there's ever been a lack in my training. Even when people ask me people like to distinguish the amateur and pro record a lot, which I understand. But for me, I've always trained the same. I've always trained as hard as possible. So to me, my record's it's all one. But so training has always been good. Maybe just training smarter instead of harder. So a lot of my fights, especially in the early days, you win a lot of your fights through being the fitter and stronger one. But as you get higher up the ranks, it becomes less about physical strength and more about technique. So maybe, I don't even know how I would change that, but I wish I had a little bit more, I guess, technical training.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of my earlier fights, I won through being the bigger bully, which, I still do now, but with added technique. So, maybe, I don't know, like another, I don't know how I would change that, but it's something I wish I had.
So what about outside of the ring? What about lifestyle outside of the ring? So enjoying, like, obviously you live for fighting, which is cool, but you've got to have that balance. What are some things that you've done well, or that you change in regards to outside of the ring to enjoy your life outside of fighting as well?
Well, that's probably a good one. So when you're a little bit younger, you sort of like want to be friends with everyone and you want to be included in everything and you want to go to all the events. But as you get a little bit more mature, like you realize like the people you don't want in your life, you go, well, you don't have to be here. Like it's my choice. So I think my circle has gotten a lot smaller. Like I don't like to hang out with 30 different people. I like to hang out with 5 people and keep those 5 people really close. And if they're not supportive of the way you live, I don't even give a shit anymore. I'm like, see you later.
Yeah. Fire. It's like a job, hey. Like fire. Think once before you fire, and think 3 times before you hire. It's the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you don't need to have all those people in your life if you don't align with them correctly. They don't need to be there.
Yeah.
100%. So cutting out people who are either a negative influence in your life, or they don't need to. You don't want them there. They don't have to be there.
Yeah, that's a common trait that we've been hearing. That's good. All right. So the last one on the hindsight front. So if you could go back to your younger self, we've put up some good tips there, but let's call this like a little quick quote or a 1-sentence thing. What is something that you would tell yourself, like something you would live by, that you could go back and tell your younger self to live by to be the person you want to be?
1 sentence.
Or even something you would say to your younger self in a way that you'd listen. It doesn't have to be like a quote. It can just be, if you're talking to your younger self, what would you say to them to make sure that they got on the path that you're happy being on now faster?
I think it would be number 1, to be a good person, because it doesn't matter if I think about my past, it doesn't matter like if you're religious or not, if you do sport or not, if you have a lot of money or not, it doesn't matter. Just be a good person. Like just be genuinely good, and it doesn't matter what you do.
Isn't it crazy these days that being a good, genuine person is no longer the rule? It's now the exception. Like if you do something good, people praise you for it. Whereas when I grew up, I was like I'm like, that's just normal. You should just be that. Like that should be what we expect. But now you do a normal good thing. People are like, oh my God, you're the best. You're like, what the fuck? Like, shouldn't everyone do that?
About me, I'm always good now. To be a good person, and to genuinely work hard, because like we were saying with fighting, nothing's going to get handed to you. So if you're just going to sit back and wait the opportunity to come, it's probably going to come. So you got to fight for what you want, not just physically.
Nice play on words.
Not just with fists, but fight in general.
Beautiful. All right. So you've been through our questions now. So let's give yourself a bit of a plug. So tell us. So this is you. Plug yourself. Tell us a bit about what you're doing now. What's coming up for you? Who do you want to connect with? So who can we try and connect you with that might help you or that you can help? And what's next for you?
So as I mentioned, I've moved gyms this year. So I'm training out of Carriota MMA in Hornsby. So they have a great program for all martial arts. They have wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai. I still train with one of my kickboxing coaches at UTC. So it depends what area you're in. They are both fantastic gyms. What's next for me is definitely getting in the cage. I've worked for you can never know too many skills in MMA, but I feel like I've done enough work now to at least get in there and start out my MMA career. I'll put my strength coach in, Tyrell. So we work out of UFC gym in Blacktown, but he's also a partner company with Ethos Performance. So we're working out of there a little bit. As far as connecting with people, man, I just want to fight. And so it's so hard for a girl to get a fight, an experienced girl to get a fight. So who I'd want to connect with is any promoter in Australia who would be willing to just help us get matched, get on a show, because that is the hardest part.
Have you got a good manager?
I don't have a manager at this point. I have my trainer. I have 2 trainers. Don't have a manager. my name is down on like 5 different shows in the new year.
Yep.
At multiple weight classes, but we just want to get that debut locked in, and I want to, like, I'm 26 now. Now is the time to push go on the MMA career. Yeah.
Do you have any names in mind?
Not really. Like, I'm not really going to be calling anyone out for my first MMA fight, but anyone really, anyone. Like, obviously they have to have experience because I'm bringing 23 fights to the table. But anyone who's from 52.5 to 57 kilos, like, go pro. I'm probably going to go straight to pro, just because it's hard to get matched to amateur with all that experience. Yeah. So yeah, anyone who wants someone who's having their first official go in the cage and wants to have a go at taking me down and beating me up, have a go.
So you heard it here first, people. Anyone who wants to have a scrap, you're in. Get in anywhere, any place, anytime. Car park, we don't care.
Yeah.
The Juggernaut's down. Gloves, no gloves, we don't care. We just have a scrap. As long as it's filmed and we can post it. All right. Well, thanks heaps for coming on. It's been a great podcast. I'm stoked it was so good and Dan's not here. We'll make sure that he hears about this one. Thanks heaps for coming on. We look forward to. We'll post this up. First part will be on Friday, and then second part will be on Monday, and we'll tag you all in it and make sure it's there. So thanks heaps, and make sure you stay in touch.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.